So far we've been working with open chords using open strings. Well, not every song will use open strings. Sometimes we're going to need to use bar chords. So what we're going to do is do that same shuffled rhythm, but we're going to play with barred notes. Our main riff will go like this. So we're going to do a 12-bar blues also in the key of A, but we're not going to have any open strings now. So I'm going to play the A note on the 5th fret of the low E string. I'll play the note E on the 7th fret of the A string, and I'll play that 2 times. And then I'll play on the 9th fret of the A string along with the 5th fret of the low E string 2 times. So at this point we have the notes A and F sharp. So here's what we've done so far. Now when playing that second chord, it's quite all right to lift off with your 3rd finger, if that's easier to do, or you can just leave your 3rd finger down. It's all good, whichever feels most natural for you. So one measure would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just back and forth between those 2 chords 2 times. And again. So that's one measure. And to play a 12-bar blues in the key of A, we'll do this 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we'll move to D simply by moving over 1 string. So now I'll play D on the 5th fret of the A string, the note A on the 7th fret of the D string, play that 2 times, and then stretch up to the note B on the 9th fret of the D string. Same thing that we've just done, we're simply moving over 1 string. So 2 measures of D would sound like this. A 1, 2. And now we'll go back to A for 2 measures. And at this point, we're up to the final 4 measures. We're going to play 1 measure of E now. And to play E, we'll play the note E on the 7th fret of the A string, B on the 9th fret of the D string, and then we'll stretch up to C sharp on the 11th fret of the D string. So 1 measure of E would sound like this. We'll have 2 hits on each of those chords. And again. So once again, the 1 measure of E. Now we're going to move down and have 1 measure of D. Now we're up to the final 2 measures. This is known as the turnaround in a blues, measures 11 and 12, the final 2 measures. We'll have 1 measure of A, followed by 1 measure of E. So that's 12 bars, and then we'll do it all over again. So at this point, why don't we go back and review this 12-bar blues. I'll kind of talk you through it, but let's try jamming along together. Here we go from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, measure 3, 4, switch, 5, and 6, back to A. Now switch to E, down to D, back to A, and end with E. So there's a 12-bar blues in the key of A, slightly different than the 12-bar we played earlier. It's all good. There's a lot of different ways to mix up the chords within a 12-bar blues. Both of these are quite common. Another thing that we can do for the last chord of the song, rather than playing the riff just in E as we just did, a common way to end will sound like this. This sounds a little more slick. This is pretty cool. We're going to play a chord known as a ninth chord. We're going to play F9 to E9, and this may take a little bit of work, but let me go ahead and show you this chord now. For the F9 chord, we're going to play the note F, found on the 8th fret of the A string. I'm going to play on the 7th fret of the D, and then with the 3rd finger, I'm going to cover the top 3 strings. Put that all together. We're not playing the 6th string, we're not playing the low E, but we are playing the other 5 strings. That's a dominant 9th chord. It's kind of a fancy version of a 7th chord. So this is F9. And then we're going to move back 1 fret to play E9. Exact same shape, just lower it 1 fret. Now, if this is tricky for you, I might recommend starting with the 3rd finger and then just putting your middle finger kind of over the back of your 3rd finger. There's not enough room to have every single finger kind of separated, so the middle finger kind of crawls on top of the 3rd finger there. Then the 1st finger gets its own fret. So the last measure will actually have 3 chords. We'll play the A chord, that'll be an A5 chord actually, 5th fret of the low E string, 7th fret of the A string. We'll play that on the downbeat of 1, 1, and then on the downbeat of 2, we'll play the F9 chord, and then on the AND of 2, we'll play the E9 chord. Sounds kind of complicated when I count through it, but as you're playing through the blues, I think it feels pretty natural. But let's count through the last measure. It would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and. Once again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and. So now I'm going to go back and play the final 4 measures. I'm going to take it from the E chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. And at this point, let's try putting all of that together with the backing track so we can hear how it sounds in context. So here's the 12-bar blues in the key of A, ending with the F9 to the E9 chord. Check it out. Now, one more thing I'd like to touch on for this rhythm is the ending. What we've done so far is known as the turnaround, where we ended with the F9 to the E9 chord. If we were to end the entire song, rather than ending F9 to E9, which will take us back to the beginning again, or turn us around to the beginning, that's why it's called the turnaround, at the ending, the most common way to end would simply be to play a B-flat 7 chord back to an A7 chord. The song is in the key of A, so that's why we'll end with the A. So we're going to move up 1/2 step or 1 fret above the A chord and then back to the A. So let's just make sure that we're familiar with this chord. I'm barring on all 6 strings on the 5th fret. This will be an A7 chord. And then I'm going to play on the 7th fret of the A string, 6th fret of the G string. This is an A7 bar chord. So we'll start up 1 fret, play a B flat 7, and then move back and play the A7. So the final 4 bars would sound like this. Thank you very much. Good night.